everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from Sportsnet. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show that almost never happened. If you would have seen the running behind the scenes that it took to get here, well, we're here. Let's move on from that. I think that was the Winnipeg Jets' most complete game of the season. If we're taking a look at what they did in this game, coming off of, some of their other games. I mean, you take a look at their game against the Edmonton Oilers. Again, I made it clear in my last podcast, I thought the Edmonton Oilers were the better team, but the Jets were the less mistake-prone team. They win that game. Some of their games earlier in the year, the Jets were the better team, but they were the more mistake-prone team. That puts them in a situation where they don't win those games. The game against the Florida Panthers, I think we can probably agree the best version of the Florida Panthers didn't show up until a little bit late in the game, and then the Jets almost lost that one, almost let it slip away. This is one of those games that they were mistake-free. They played the right way. And if you take a look at the things that the Winnipeg Jets, what is supposed to make the Winnipeg Jets a good team, well, good goaltending, right? Check. You had that from Connor Hellebuck tonight as he puts in his second straight performance in which he was probably the best player on the ice. He gets the first star. That kind of backs that up. The other thing the Jets are supposed to be able to do is have a little bit of high-end talent. Well, Kyle Connor scores a hugely important goal, I thought, to put the Jets up 3-1 in that game, restore the 2-goal lead, which ended up being the game winner. And I really do think that the goal that kind of broke the backs of the St. Louis Blues in this game. And then what's the other thing that we've been talking about for so long coming into the season, the depth of the Winnipeg Jets. Well, I don't know what says depth more than the idea that the Winnipeg Jets got 3 of their 4 goals from Morgan Barron, from Mason Appleton, and from David Gustafsson, who scores for the first time in, I think the broadcast had said it, 3 years. I mean, talk about timely goals for those players to come up with in this situation. This is a complete game from beginning to end. I thought the first period, the teams were rather close. I was a little bit surprised. I've taken a look at this Blues team, and yes, I guess the Blues are now 2-2-1. So like the Winnipeg Jets, they are a 500 hockey club. It's not a team I expect to go on to make the playoffs. After watching that game tonight, I continue to not think that the Blues are headed towards the playoffs this season, but I do think they've taken a step since last season. Really good sticks, really, hung with the Jets in a lot of points in this game. But you could see the Jets in that second period were they had a level and a gear that the St. Louis Blues were not able to achieve, were not able to hang with. And another thing that we'll have to get into, because I know Ken is going to want to talk about this, as he should, but the idea of the Winnipeg Jets pre-scout and how it panned out in this game. Interesting stuff when you're talking about Rick Bowness not being in this game here. And, we should add the Winnipeg Jets, they dedicated that game to Judy Bowness, who's had her health issues that kept Rick off the bench on this night. But if you're thinking that the coaching staff is going to miss a beat without him there, you shouldn't have thought that, because we saw what happened last season when he had COVID, and Scott Arniel and the rest of the Winnipeg Jets coaching staff, assistant coaches, were able to get the Jets shot out of a cannon to start last season. Well, they pick up where they left off here with the players giving a nod to the pre-scout that really, really paid off, especially at the beginning of that second period. Interesting stuff out of the Winnipeg Jets tonight, but I continue to suggest this Winnipeg Jets team is a team that the entire year I think has been playing, mostly a great game. Some things to clean up. The things they needed to clean up cost them earlier on. But that, to me, looks like the kind of game that they need to play against a team like the St. Louis Blues, who comes in here, a team I think they are a better team than, and I think that they ground their way out of that game tonight and did all the right things to take a game that could have been tight, especially with a couple of breakaways in that game, and come away with the victory, an important victory that gets them to 500 on the season. That's my take on that. But we want to get the take of my main man, Kenny Weeb, who's at home ready to do this. So let's bring him in, the man with the best music in the business. Here comes Kenny. Kenny, Russ Lowen says it right here. We're in a wild card spot. The Jets slip into the playoffs, and there we go. Isn't it? What is it after Canadian Halloween or Canadian Thanksgiving? If you're in the wild card spot, it means you make the playoffs. So let's shut it down and get to the playoffs. The Jets are in there. Mark it. Plant the flag. Here we go. In the way too early to call the spot news there, but I love it. It's good to see the Jets in that spot there because they were, you were having to go way down the list to see them not too long ago, but the Jets starting to come into a spot, put themselves in a good spot, and really, I think, can have eradicated that bad start and put themselves, in a good spot heading forward.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, going into the Oilers game, the Jets were 30th or 31st in the NHL, and look up, and 2 wins later, they're finding themselves in a wild card spot. So the lucky numbers are U.S. Thanksgiving, and Elliot Friedman also has his own checklist, which is November 4th. If a team is not within 4 points of a playoff spot on November 1st, that is the 15% chance of making the playoffs. So,
wow.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the St. Louis Blues are the team that everyone points to now and gets to point to for years of being, where they were last place in the league in the new year and went on to win the Stanley Cup that year and almost caught the Winnipeg Jets in the standings that year as well. So we know that doesn't mean anything. And definitely at this stage, we know that what we've seen out of the teams over the playoff line, below the playoff line, it really is kind of meaningless right now at this stage. But I will say this, it's good to, there was a lot of people who were thinking, Ken, going into that Oilers game, that there was potential for the Jets to, be 1-4. And then so a win like tonight makes it so that you're 2-4. That doesn't sound that great, right? But the last 2 games, putting together their most complete games, I think just kind of really erases the bad start and gets the Jets to a point now where they're like, okay, let's get out there and see what we can do.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's super interesting. This road trip here, this Eastern Conference road trip, it looked like it had the potential to be a bit of a softer spot on the schedule until the Detroit Red Wings decided to jump in the hot tub time machine into the 90s here. I know they lost in overtime today, but they've been scoring at a ridiculous rate. And, the Montreal Canadiens, who we still think are openly tanking, don't seem to want to lose hockey games in the last little bit here. So it'll be an interesting road trip coming up. But Sean, you're right. I mean, instead of 1-4 or 2-4, the Jets are suddenly 3-3 and feeling better about themselves. So it's certainly an interesting time for the Jets here. And yeah, it's so, things can change so quickly, right? Our biggest concern was, they were giving up a ton of goals. Now the last 2 games, they've given up 2 goals in each game. And, they were lowering the shots, but now today's shots were only 20 shots on net, but they did give a couple of odd man rushes. But for the most part, Sean, I agree with you. I thought that the Jets defending was really good. They didn't give up a ton of glorious chances. And the Blues are a team that are going to be hard to figure out. I thought Jordan Binnington was excellent in the first period, especially.
Oh, yeah.
And the scouting report going into the game was that the Blues get outshot almost every single night, and that definitely held true. But it was a 1-goal game. I mean, even though the Blues had not scored a power play goal in their first 12 chances this year, they get one on a beautiful redirection from Pavel Buchnevich. And you look up and you think the Jets have had complete control, and yet it's a 2-1 game. So, and then even it's 3-1, and then all of a sudden it's 3-2 after a crazy bounce, and then the Jets find a way to get the job done. But yeah, I mean, we should start with Judy Bonus. I mean, good news that she's home recovering, and obviously we know that Rick Bonus and his entire family is beloved around the NHL, not just in this city and province, but around the league. And it was a scary time for the family with the seizure that Judy suffered and being hospitalized. But sounds like things are stabilizing, and then that's good news for all parties. But as you mentioned, I mean, Scott O'Neill has been an NHL head coach and been an associate and assistant coach at a high level for a long, long time. So they have a game plan, and they were able to execute it pretty well. And as Mason Appleton said with quite a bit of passion, I mean, that they're thinking about the Bonus family, and they don't want to let Rick down, basically. So, yeah, I mean, let's dig into the game, though. I mean, it was pretty tidy overall, but yeah, I mean, the Jets, instead of, asking a lot of questions, we're starting to get some answers, I think, Sean, is how I would put it.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think, like I'd said, the Jets we're getting a good look at who they are, how they play their game. One of the things that I thought that really stood out in that game was the way that they defended their blue line. Like, there was just no clean zone entries for the St. Louis Blues. At every point they were challenged at the blue line. You could see they kind of figured it out at the beginning. The Robert Thomas, Kyrou line, along with Brendan Saad. They seemed to get a little bit of a traction at first, and then all of a sudden they just couldn't get across the blue line. And if they did, they were fumbling with the puck. They were getting pressed. You're seeing that pressure style of game really worked. And I thought that it was a little bit less, like, usually the Jets are kind of pouncing on a team as they're trying to leave the zone, but they really seem to just tie up the neutral zone tonight. And it really, we'll get into the idea of the coaching battle in this one, because I actually thought it was a fascinating coaching battle. But I just thought the Jets came with a good game plan. I think the Blues were expecting them to really press in the offensive zone, and then all of a sudden everything was neutral zone. And I just don't think that they figured it out at any point during the game. And I like the Blues figured out how to take on the Jets' defensive system. And I thought that the Jets got stronger and stronger as the game went on in regards to finding a way to solve and create opportunities out of that Blues system. And that comes right down to the coaches and what they did. We'll jump into that. I just want to say, I'm going to run with the theme of the wake up of the game, brought to you by Pristine Roofing, brought to you by Kenny Weeb. Of course, I'm going to steal Kenny's wake up, and the wake up I think we have to hand out to our main man, North End Rick, because North End Rick, it's official now. He had thought that the Jets were going to go 2-8 to start the season. For a while, he was kind of boasting. He said he thought it was going to be 1-4, and he basically thought he was halfway there if that happened, right? If you're 1-4, you're on track to be turning 8. 2-8 didn't happen for North End Rick. Once again, 2 years. I think North End Rick is a nihilist. I think that he just doesn't believe in anything, and he's, it's just that maybe there's a little bit of dourness there when it comes to his fandom, because we know he's a Jets fan, but I think he's one of those guys who expects the worst but hopes for the best. He was expecting a 2-8 start. That is not happening. So you're there he is. There he is. Next best thing to 2-8 is 3-7. I'm going to throw Rick up there, though, because Rick, one thing, he may not be good at picking the record of the Winnipeg Jets, especially in the first 10 games of the season, but what he's really good at is coming over to your place and telling you the things that you need to do to tie up that home, your exteriors, the roofing, the siding, all the different kind of things, because he represents Pristine Roofing. And Rick says, hop on the phone, give him a call at any time, 1-204-981-6289. He's the guy who will show up and give you bad hockey takes and absolutely phenomenal service for Pristine Roofing. If you don't want to go through the bad takes, well, you can always call Pristine Roofing at 1-204-237-7663. But either way, make sure you tell them that Kenny and Renny sent you. And Ken, you're looking like $1 million again. Probably have the polar bear feet slippers on underneath there. I tried to get home and get comfy. Didn't work out. You know me. I'm not the most, I'm a little bit of a forgettable guy, and I forgot the car keys way up where I could not get them. So that's why you're seeing me in these lovely environments. I love being here, but both of us dressed to the nines, whether we're at home or here, because we go to Frankie and the boys at Vittorio Rossi. Got to say, give a shout out to Craig Zamzow, who went over and got service at Vittorio Rossi, updated the wardrobe, went in there. They know Craig well from the times he's been there in the past. He did what all y'all should be doing out there if you want to look like Kenny and Renny, and that's head on down to Corden Avenue, go into Vittorio Rossi, proclaim loudly Kenny and Renny sent you, ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will take care of you, and you will walk out of there looking like $1 million. Ken, let's get into what was happening with the coaching system. I thought Mason Appleton was extremely revealing on why the Jets got the first 2 goals that they got in that second period and how those goals came to be.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job of, going low to the high slot on both of those plays. Obviously, with the center release system, I think is how Mason Appleton was describing it. Wasn't, some teams play man on man, some play, a combination or a hybrid of man on man. That's just a joke, Sean. That's a joke. That's the Binnington. Do I look nervous? I think he's just making a crack there.
I know.
Yeah. So the Jets did find a nice seam in the high slot for consecutive one-timers, and it's so rare, Sean, to see that happen in a game, right? I mean, that was the old. That's a classic Dennis Bayak bang bang right there. I think 13 seconds apart. I mean, the first one is, I wouldn't call it a broken play, but it's a little bit more disjointed because David Gustafsson is coming onto the ice after the line change by Nikolai Ehlers, whereas on the next goal by Mason Appleton, they definitely found a soft spot in the seam for his one-timer on the opposite side. So, yeah, I thought it was very interesting how they described it was something, because you had asked Mason point blank if that was a first period adjustment, and he said no, it was something that they had looked at in the pre-scout in terms of where they might be able to generate some offense. And Scott Arniel explaining, if you're trying to go a little bit more of a down low cycle, those plays get broken up or the plays get killed because they're able to attack a little bit more down low. And in this way, the puck movement was just really crisp for the Jets. And it's interesting when you can find a couple of, you're looking for advantages, and the Jets found them in this game, basically, with the systemic play.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the interesting part about this, and I touched on it earlier on, but we'll get into the details of it. But Rick Bowness, there was every reason for this coaching staff to be distracted with what was happening with Judy Bowness, and let me add my voice to the chorus of voices that say, this is a beloved hockey family across the entire NHL. And so I can tell you right now, Ken, I do a lot of dealings with people out of Toronto because of my job. And I got a whole bunch of texts from people out of Toronto, asking to pass on, all the well wishes and everything like that. Every reason for this coaching staff to be a little bit distracted here heading into this game. And instead they basically go out and find the blueprint to offensively. Like this is the great example of adapting your offense to kind of fit what this team does. So if you take a look at what Mark Scheifele usually does in a game like this, and Kyle Connor, they love to work the boards, right? And we didn't see a lot of that from the Jets tonight. So there could be a little bit of a look at this that people would see and be like, the Winnipeg Jets offense wasn't quite on what we expect it to be, right? And yet, in essence, what happens is the Blues love to overload the boards and not give that up. So the Jets went to where the Blues weren't. And that was a smart thing to do here tonight. And the one thing that it did was it created a scenario by which it opened up the offense to more than just, the big shooters on the Winnipeg Jets, right? This comes out and it creates a scenario by which David Gustafsson can find himself room in the exact spot that David Gustafsson can find a way to score from, right? Like Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor, these are the kind of players who can score from everywhere. It takes a little bit more for players like that. And sure enough, Mason Appleton scores a very similar goal to David Gustafsson right afterwards. And that's a good scouting ploy because basically the Jets score twice before the St. Louis Blues even really know what they're doing wrong. They don't have time to correct what they've done wrong, right? Because the Jets come out and they score, it was like in the neighborhood, Ken, of 20 seconds after the first goal. So the Jets found a weakness in the Blues system. They found it before the game started. They worked on it throughout the first period, opened it up in the second period, score a goal. And before there's really time for the coaches to say, okay, we need to adjust and we can't do this. Well, the next line's already out on the ice and they haven't been able to get that treatment from their head coach. And boom, the puck is in the net again, 2-0. And really, I just think I thought it was a pretty darn close game before that, Ken. Like, I know the Jets outshot the Blues in the first period. I thought the Blues actually had the better quality chances in the first period. So I thought it was basically a sawed-off even game. And then all of a sudden, bang, bang, the old Dennis Bayak. And suddenly the face of that game just entirely changes. And the Blues are put into a little bit tougher of a spot. The Jets are able to press that much more because now they don't just have a lead. They've got a 2-goal lead, right? Oh, Positive Mall's back. Who got a hold and chatted with me behind the scenes. I appreciate that, Mall. That was good. But I just think that that was something that Mason Appleton talked about as the mindset of this team, and people may remember if they tune into Rick Bonus's pressers. He talks about the Jets and how you saw this in the game against the Edmonton Oilers. They go down 2-0, but Josh Morrissey comes out quickly and he gets a goal back, right? So all of a sudden, instead of being down 2-0 and problematic, boom, Josh Morrissey goes out, gets a goal, and now it's just a one-goal game. It's a manageable game, right? You don't have to push too hard. You don't have to feel like you need to fall out of your structure in chasing the game. Important to score a goal at that time, and it really kind of kills whatever momentum Edmonton was building up at that time. Well, Rick Bowness is really big on, if we get scored on, it's important to go out and own the next shift. So if you're, and a lot of times the line that will go out there and do that, Ken, is Adam Lowry's line, right? So if Rick Bowness feels like the Jets are losing the momentum battle, he'll throw out Adam Lowry's line, they'll go out and they'll grind and they'll try and take that back, and they score a goal, well, that's so much better, right? But it doesn't end there. Rick Bowness is really, really big on the Jets. If we score a goal as well, now it's time, the blood's in the water. So if you can hop out and score again, it entirely changes the face of the game, which we saw here tonight. And so you've got that exact same mindset. And once again, which line is it, Ken, that gets thrown out in that situation? It's not the Jets score and it's Cole Perfetti getting the puck to David Gustafsson, and now let's find a way to get Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor out there to try and pile on. No, once again, it's Adam Lowry's line, because I think that it's easy to say that, and every team in the league, I'm sure, would like to go score a goal and then score another goal or get scored on and go get that back. I do think that in that facet, the Adam Lowry line is a little bit of a secret weapon, right? Because one thing that is Rick Bowness has got those players bought into the idea that we score a goal, you're not just sitting back. You're not taking it easy. You're going out and you're going at that other team in that moment. Same deal if you just got scored on. It's time to go out and punch them in the mouth. And I really do think it's a smart idea by Rick Bowness to have that secret weapon and to kind of get your team into that mindset, because I think tonight's game is a game they win because they're able to go out and capture that momentum and follow up on it immediately. And it's the reason they got back into and ended up winning that Edmonton Oilers game, because they snuffed out whatever momentum the Oilers had built up going in that first period. And it happened earlier in the season as well in another game. I can't remember the instance of it. But if the Winnipeg Jets can be that team that quickly pile on 2 goals or quickly snuff out the momentum of that other team, that's a secret weapon that really keeps you in games or puts you ahead in games that makes it tough for you to be beat.
Yeah, no doubt. And, the good news for the Jets is that they're not just reliant on one line. I mean, you talked about the depth in the open a little bit. I mean, it's an important game for the depth again, because the Jets aren't just relying on their top scorers. Now, having said that, Kyle Connor gets what ends up being the game-winning goal on an absolute snipe show where he sells pass and Jordan Binnington freezes and he ripped it high blocker, right? I mean, that was it was a Kyle Connor special, and that was a game where, the Jets get an odd man rush and then convert. But I agree with you. I mean, I thought that the Lowry line did a lot of great work during the game. And maybe, it was only a couple shifts, but it was interesting that Morgan Barron kind of went up with that line for a while. And then, Niederreiter took one shift, I think, with the fourth line. And then they kind of went back to where they were. But they're getting a lot out of everyone right now, especially up front. And, in a game like this where the St. Louis Blues really want to kind of grind their opponent down, Sean, I think they're sort of getting back to their identity also. Maybe they're not quite as physical as the 2019 team. I don't think they are as physical, but they're trying to kind of play the game in the hard areas and, make the other team really work through the neutral zone, as you touched on earlier.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think one of the biggest differences, they don't have the same defense core. I mean, they have some good defensemen. There's no doubt. Justin Falk, really good defenseman. Torrey Krug, Stanley Cup champion, everything else. But, it's not the same core that was led by Alex Pietrangelo, with all due respect to them. So I think the Jets played very well. They didn't get frustrated by kind of playing in the mud a little bit, and then they kind of got their, the grind game going themselves, and, they used their skill also. So I think there were a lot of positives on a lot of fronts for the Jets. And, Yeah, in terms of complete, I would say that they limited the mistakes, and that's an important thing when it comes to the team had been making the kind of errors that were ending up in the back of the net. So this time they limited the mistakes, and none of them were really costly. And another game where all we talked about for the first 4 games, because it was a fact, they were giving up 4 or more in every game, and now they've had 2 games in a row where they've only given up 2 goals. And I mean, you can say whatever you want about whatever opponent, but I mean, they only gave up 2 against the Oilers also. And yes, the Oilers are struggling, but hey, if a team has consecutive games where they only give up 2 goals, that's good news for the team, because it means they're buckling down a little bit. So, and it's good news for Hellebuck, because as we mentioned earlier, early in the year, stats can get easily skewed, and now, suddenly Hellebuck's, chipping away at the old save percentage, and the goals against is becoming a lot more reasonable. So, as we said at the beginning, don't worry about Hellebuck. He will get going, and he has got himself going.
Well, he's the guy who so often has the Winnipeg Jets covered, and that's that makes sense, the way that the way that he's been playing so far. And I mean, might as well, if I'm saying that, give a shout out to the Kenny and Renny OGs, the Johnston group, who I think he's a good candidate for it. Ken, do you have a play that you'd specifically have for the "We've Got You Covered" play of the game?
Yeah, actually, I kind of like Lynette Reimer's suggestion of going with the coaching staff here and allowing Rick Bowness to be at home with Judy, and allow them to kind of work on the health and family. And they talk about the family atmosphere all the time here. So I think in this case, I'm gonna drop that on the entire coaching staff, led by Scott O'Neill, as the Jets were able to get this victory this evening. But Hellebuck, very good honorable mention, as he's shaved that goals against suddenly down to .338, and the save percentage rising up to .881. So certainly still not Hellebuck-like, but working their way up. So I'd say that's those are good news kind of situations, which the Johnston group, a lot of good news happening there.
Yeah, no doubt. Great pick. The coaching staff having Rick Bowness covered, and the players having them covered as well. Perfect representation of the "We've Got You Covered" play of the game by the Johnston group, the Kenny and Renny OGs. And do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And I want to talk a little bit more about Connor Hellebuck. I would say you could take his performance to the bank, but that wouldn't fit with our folks at Cambrian Credit Union, because they're not a bank, they're the credit union, and they make a difference out there. That's why the two of us go to them. We both have our mortgages with them. My family, right from my father-in-law down to my 2 kids, have accounts with them at the credit union. And talking about having people covered, credit union has always had the community covered, so much in sponsorship, so much in donations, and so much just in good quality representation for the people who do their banking with Cambrian. The two of us being 2 of those people, Ken. So get big shout out to them. I just want to get back to Hellebuck. What do you think kind of clicked for him? Because I take a look at that Edmonton Oilers game, and I know I was seeing it online, and I agreed with it. That second goal, he really kind of looked like he was out of it, and then all of a sudden he's just locked into the big and boring. And I couldn't think of 2 better examples than the 2 Jordan Kyrou breakaways on this night. And I mean, what is that? That's 4 breakaways in the last 2 games that he stopped, and never mind stopped, has made it look like they didn't have a chance of going in. Like it was basically like he was just saying, bring the puck to me and just put it right here in front of me, and I'm going to stop it like it's nothing. Are you seeing something that kind of turned in his game to have him responding the way he's responding?
Yeah, just a little bit quieter. I mean, I don't profess to be a goalie expert like our pal Kevin Woodley, but I just think he looks quieter in the game. And as you mentioned, I mean, it's a great example. He just over pursued on the goal by Evan Bouchard. I mean, there was actually a slight, I would say there was an under pursuit today on the Kyrou chance that went off the pad to Brandon Saad. But Hellebuck, even though there was, I thought, almost 3/4 of the net open, he still made a really good save on Brandon Saad. At first, I thought it might have been wide, but Hellebuck really found a way to get his pad on it. So I feel like, no, that's not a great example, but I would say that overall, he's very square to the puck. He's fighting through traffic. I mean, the Blues tried to do a good job of getting to the front of the net, but I thought that Hellebuck really stood tall throughout the course of the game. And when he is locked in that way, he's really tough to score on. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It was a perfect redirection that broke up the shutout bid on the power play, and the second one was kind of just more kind of bad luck, I would say, on that one, right? I mean, goes off Appleton right to him. I mean, that's just really not much they can do there. That's just an unlucky bounce for the Jets, a lucky bounce for the Blues. But Rick Bowness told us last week that Lauren Brossoit would get another game, and I have to imagine that game is Saturday night, where you and I will be at the Bell Center.
Yeah.
I would imagine, Connor Hellebuck, a Michigan guy, he's going to have a lot of friends and family in attendance. He usually does, and I just think that he's, I'm not sure. Connor's not the kind of guy who puts extra pressure on himself, so I don't think that's why the start was a little bit, uneven, if you will. But I just think that he's a guy who, he used the word belief a ton when it came to his contract extension. But this guy he is an unwavering belief. He spent a little bit of time with Wade Flaherty in between starts, and got kind of back up into the usual Connor Hellebuck type of style, if you will, and it's led to positive results for both himself and for the Jets as a team. And hey, you gotta get time for. We've talked about this, locked in or not. I agreed with you totally. I know you were on with us earlier in the week, and you said you have to play Hellebuck today. Absolutely. After that game at Edmonton, he had to play again today. To have a lower volume shot game was really important also for Hellebuck after being a little busier with the 40 shots on Saturday. I think that the game with Detroit is going to be super fun. Alex DeBrincat playing out of his mind right now, and that's a fun team. Fun team for teams to play against. They play a little bit more of their back to the kind of up tempo style under Derek Lalonde, and I think Hellebuck will be jazzed to play in his home state after signing a big ticket deal. And, then Brossoit will have an exciting Saturday night. And then, next week, Brossoit is probably going to play again, either against Arizona or St. Louis in the return match, I would say. So, that's going to get to a place where it's, 57-ish starts for Hellebuck, maybe 25 or, somewhere in the 25 to 27 range for Brossoit, I think is a good number. And we'll see we'll continue to track that for sure.
Yeah, I'm just going to go here because I want to talk just briefly about Connor Hellebuck. And I wanted to kind of throw out, for me, the two Kairu, the first one more so than the second one, to me, is the keg save of the game. You should all share your keg save of the game, everyone out there, because if you do, you automatically are entered to win a $50 gift certificate. We give away one every single show this year, $50. Very generous for the keg to chip that in, and listen. Other than those Hellebuck saves, the best save every night is the keg save of the game, and I'll announce who got it. It's James Anerson, who walks away with the keg save of the game. I believe he's often in the show, watching the show. I don't think I've seen him here, and I don't think he was live in the last show, but he left a comment on the YouTube page below. He went into the raffle and walks away with a $50 gift certificate, gift card to the keg if he gets a hold of me before the Jets' next game. That's the rules. You got to jump in there. Everyone has done it so far. Everyone's done a good job clean. Just like if you go to the keg, you're going to clean your plate. Ken, I get caught licking the plate sometime. I like it so much
So do
there.
I.
But everyone's cleaned up their gift cards for the keg. James Anerson is the next guy. Make sure you do that, which kind of brings us to the Lamplighter, where people haven't necessarily been cleaning their plates on this one, because
That's
for the
true.
second time already this season, we are giving away a 16-pack of Lampies, the nectar of the gods, because the last one went unclaimed.
Ooh, rough one.
And we have a winner of the 16-pack. I'll announce that after you can share with me your Lamplighter of the game. What do you got?
Oh, get yourself a seat on the Gus bus, Sean. It was nearly 4 years between NHL regular season game goals. I was there for his first NHL goal where he danced around Erik Karlsson in the neutral zone and ripped home a shot from just inside the blue line. And today it was absolute bar down special for David Gustafsson. Really great, really slick feed by Cole Perfetti. Eyes in the back of your head special with the backhand pass, and just a absolutely Rip City one-timer for Gustafsson. And he had 3 shots, I think, in the second period, really getting himself going, taking on that shooter's mentality that we've often heard Nikolai Ehlers discuss. And just Sean, you were in the scrum. Like, David could not have, for a guy who stayed pretty composed, the guy legit could not have been happier, right? I mean,
oh god,
this is a guy who waited almost
how that would feel.
Almost 4 years, man. I mean, like, it was just a thing of beauty. And to think of Rick's honesty, and then talking with David Gustafsson about Rick's honesty on that. Like, imagine that phone call. You think you finally made it, a couple injuries and maybe holding you back. And your coach says, David, I hope you're having a great summer. By the way, when you come to camp, you better get you better score or you're not going to be on the team, essentially. I know it was probably a little bit more massaged message than that, but just really good job of, changed his training, got himself going, and really looks like he's playing a much more confident game. Last year there was so much more chip and chase. You just don't want to get scored on. I mean, and now he's gone from treading water to wanting, getting to be in, try to become an more impactful player. Obviously, his role is still limited, but killing penalties. Scott O'Neill said it perfectly. This is a guy who started the year as the 13th forward, and you would never have known based on how hard he was working in practice and all those other things. And Sean, it's tough to stay confident when you're a healthy scratch, right? I mean, that there's just no way around that. So
you're talking to a guy who knows a little something about it.
Oh, so do I. Yeah, exactly. So, hey, you have to tip your cap. That's a major stick tap to David Gustafsson. The only qualm that I have with David Gustafsson is he's blown a massive opportunity. His goal song should be Bus Rider by the Guess Who. Like, come on. Honestly, I know he's a little bit too young for it, but could you imagine? I mean, that's it would be perfect. It would be absolutely perfect.
I mean, do you think he knows about the Gus Bus line? Yeah.
Oh, he definitely knows about the Gus Bus. I just don't think he knows about the line from the song. I'm pretty sure.
It's because Ken walks into the Jets room every day and he's like, Gus Bus every time. He's like, he's his hype machine. He's his hype machine. There you go. Hey, there's so much happening here. I want to share my lamplighter. I do know someone just jumped in here. Hunter Lamenda said, hey, saw you after the game, Renny. Love your show, man. Really appreciate that, Hunter.
Awesome.
Caught my attention, came over, shook my hand. This is the kind of stuff that, like, if you see us out, it actually happened a couple times. I was out with Mrs. Renny for lunch, and a couple of people stopped and said hi. Do that anytime you see Ken and I. If you want to come over, if you want to talk podcast, we love doing that.
Don't be shy.
Really appreciate this, Hunter. Thanks for coming over, saying that. It means the world to us when people appreciate and decide to spend time with us. So thank you very much for doing that. Just gonna, before I do my thing, the hashtags, people, hashtag Lamplighter, hashtag the keg when you're saving or when you're sharing your the keg save of the game and your lamplighter. We got to get to that because soon enough, we're not going to accept your entries unless you do that. So people get on the hashtag train. And I'm going to give it to Kyle Connor, A, because it's a gorgeous goal, but B, it brings me to my next point. And I don't want to get too deep into, well, here, I'm just going to say that's my goal. That's my lamplighter on the night. I'm going to explain after I say, if you want to share with us your lamplighter, well, you should, because as soon as you do, you're automatically entered to win an 8-pack of Frosty Delicious Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to send you your own free 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, head on down to the Trans-Canada Brewing Company. Join them in the tap room at 11290 Kenniston, where they've got all the good stuff. The nectar of the gods. They've got the blueberry beer. They got great IPAs. They've got great everything. The pizza's amazing. Someone wrote in here before, or no, it was a comment from the last show that Trans-Canada or Brewing Company has the best pizza they've ever had before. I'm right there with that. Good stuff. Share it with us so that you can join in to the fun, everybody. And that means it is time for me to announce the winner of not the 8-pack of Frosty Delicious Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company, but a 16-pack. And that goes to Dan the Jets fan. Dan the Jets fan, I haven't seen you in the chat room yet so far. You are now on the clock. You better get a hold of Renny before the next game, because if you don't, it's going to turn into us giving away a 2-for a Frosty Delicious Lamplighter Ale, brought to you by our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company. So you know what to do. Get a hold of me. Send me your full name. Send me your email address. And if you do that, you will be the proud owner of a 16-pack of Frosty Delicious Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company. Okay, I want to get back to that goal. The reason why, yes, it's like Kyle Connor absolutely rips that shot. It's gorgeous. He waits out the player who's sliding across. He looks over like he's trying to make the pass, which is why that player lays out, tries to block the pass. He's not trying to block the shot, but it's almost pedestrian by this point. Kyle Connor has got such a good shot that when he does that, we're not amazed. Like, Ken, if someone shoots that shot at pickup hockey where we are, everyone's jaws drop. They take off their helmets. They go to the dressing room and they just give up, right? Because that's not human what he does there. But he does it so often. That's just what we do. But what I thought was really, really good about that, and overall good for the team, it's a setup by Nate Schmidt, but it's not the setup. This pass is fairly pedestrian as well, but it's pedestrian because everything is wide open, because that's a play in which the Blues player has the puck and goes to chip it out of the zone, and everyone is expecting the puck to get out of the zone, and it should, and it doesn't, because of a very subtle, nice play by Nate Schmidt, who fakes like he's going after the player to kind of take the hit. And because of that, the player doesn't chip the puck out as hard as he usually would, because he doesn't think he needs to. But before he goes in for the hit, Schmidt turns, gets his back position so that the player can't go by him, and makes it look like he's already going down to head for the puck. And the chip comes through, and it's not as hard as it should be. And not only does Nate Schmidt stop the puck, keep it in the zone, but he pulls it immediately off the boards and gets the puck over to Kyle Connor, which creates all the chaos that happens in that point. Yes, it's a phenomenal goal by Kyle Connor to score the way that he scores, like he's so capable of doing. But the reason the chaos is created is because of a super slick, super smooth play by Nate Schmidt. And the reason I think that is so important, not because Nate Schmidt, we know, can't do that, but because Nate Schmidt has had a tough start to this season. He got scratched, which, you know, for a player in his position with the contract that he has, is not something guys like to sit back and kind of, it doesn't sit well with guys like that, right? It does not sit well. And so how a guy bounces back from that means everything. Nate Schmidt gets pulled out of the lineup. He doesn't pout. He doesn't sulk. He shows up in the room. He's there to talk to the reporters and answer questions. When he comes back in, he doesn't shy away of what's happened to him. He doesn't get pouty. He doesn't take it out on his teammates. He doesn't take it out on the media. He handles it with true class. And I think he's kind of worked his way out of this situation, putting himself in a position where he's getting trusted by his coaches. And to me, that's just another example of him handling his scratch the right way and coming out of it the right way.
Yeah, no doubt. And, you know, nice segue, as I'm going to be writing about Nate Schmidt on the off day. I had a good talk with him the week before, but that was before the scratch. So before I wrote the story, I felt like I had to speak with them about it, and I need to get those words into print. But you're 100% right. I mean, he has handled it well, and I think his game is elevated. I know someone in the chat room didn't agree, but I think Nate has played well in the last 2 games. And as you mentioned, that was a high-end play that he made to set up. That goal doesn't happen without the play by Schmidt. There's no doubt about it. And yeah, I mean, you can play in the league for 600 games as an undrafted college free agent, but, you know, doesn't matter what level you're playing at, especially at the NHL level, still nobody likes to be scratched. But there too, you can handle it one of 2 ways. You can feel sorry for yourself, or you can go out and do the work and raise your standard, and that's what Nate Schmidt has done the last couple of games here.
Okay, I want you to give Sweet Lou a shout out before we move on. Already been some Louisms in there, and I just got to say one thing here, Ken. When I'm talking, it's hard for me to manage the chat room, so I miss some stuff. So when I go in and I check all the comments afterwards for the keg save of the game and the lamplighter, I hit a lot of comments that I sometimes don't see in the show. And I love seeing the burns that I missed. I got a whole bunch of like the spark plug guff talk and the elitist Renny and his rusty truck. I hadn't seen it live, so that was great.
Good
The other
stuff.
stuff I love is the Louisms, and there have been some awesome Louisms. I just love how that's built. Let me quickly tell the story, Ken. I think everyone will like this. A lot of people were at the year ender. I don't think Lou was aware of the Louisms and kind of like the Chuck Norris style character that he's become within the show.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things that has just happened so organically, the Louisms. So keep them coming, everybody. And Ken, give Sweet Lou a shout out while you're at it.
Yeah, for folks who have realty needs they'd like to have met, whether you're buying, whether you're selling, whether you're curious what the house on the corner might be going for, if you're considering a move, you can contact our good friend Lou Furlan at Real LePage Dynamic Realty. You could reach him at let's get that up there, Sean. I need the back.
Yeah, I can get it. Keep doing your thing. I got it. Keep going.
Yeah, I need the number. There we go.
Oh, okay. There we go.
204-791-9971, or you can reach him at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@loufurlan.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Furlan, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast. And for that, we are eternally grateful.
I guess some of us don't have these things off by heart. I can tell you Lou would be able to recite that and every word we've said on this podcast back to you, because that's Lou. There ain't nothing Lou can't do. I'll tell you that much. Appleton bounced back. I thought while we're talking about Nate Schmidt's bounce back, I thought maybe we should be talking about Appleton, because I think that, I thought he took like not the best penalty that last game. I thought he didn't necessarily have the best game after coming off that top line where I thought he didn't look, he did, I don't know. He didn't look out of place, but he didn't look in place either on that first line, if that makes any sense. Like, he definitely didn't look like he brought a lot of juice to that first line, but coming out here tonight after getting demoted from your opportunity with the first line, again, that's something that a player could kind of take a look at that and be like, that's a reason to kind of pout or maybe be a little upset or get down on yourself. And instead, he comes out and gets the goal, which I really do think turned the game in the favor of the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, important game for him for sure. 2 goals, 2 shots on goal, 6 shot attempts. I mean, we talked about Mason Appleton. I mean, he has competition. We know that Rick Bowness enjoys playing him with Adam Lowry, but he has competition now, right? I mean, these are the facts. The Jets are a deeper team, and Mason Appleton needed to produce a little bit more offense this year, and he is off to a good start on that front. We know that the injury kind of disrupted his play over the course of last year, and kind of disrupted his offensive rhythm. But he's a guy that has the potential to be a double-digit goal scorer, and now he's off to a good start, feeling confident about things. And you're right. I mean, it's easy after you get a promotion to the top line to think, oh, well, what am I doing back on the third line? Well, that's where you're most comfortable for it. So then you play the game that you're most comfortable playing. And, that's really shown for him. And, it didn't matter if it was, Nino Niederreiter or Morgan Barron. I thought that line did a really nice job. And, Adam Lowry had a great chance on the shorthanded breakaway, went 5-hole, went to the money move, and Jordan Binnington just closed up that 5-hole before it could squeeze through. But I liked Appleton's game for sure. I thought he was moving his legs well. Did a nice job on the PK, but I thought that line 5-on-5 really did a good job. Different lines matched up at different times during the game, but they were up against the Shen line a bit, and also against Thomas on occasion. But I thought they did a really good job overall, and Appleton doing a nice job offensively as well as the defense that he can provide for sure.
Well, I think it just kind of adds to the whole idea of the Jets and their depth here tonight. So it's a conversation we've had before, and I've said this before. I challenge the idea of the Jets being this really deep team, right? The idea that you take out Wheeler, you take out PLD, and you add in Kapari and Iafallo and Gabe Velarde, and does that really put you over the top? I mean, here, a lot of these are characters that we've known for a lot of years, right? Like you've been on the Gus bus for a long time. He comes through tonight. Appleton is a guy who's been around 2015 draft pick, right? He's been in the organization for a really long time. I thought you got to throw a guy like Cole Perfetti in there if we're talking about kind of bounce back games, because you and I had the conversation in the last podcast about the idea of him kind of like earning the trust back that I feel like he lost in that LA Kings game. And I think them kind of slowly bringing him back from his experiment at center, which I think if the coaches were being honest, I don't think they thought that went well at all for Cole Perfetti. I think they thought he got targeted and spent a lot of his time just, dealing with the extracurriculars, not being able to kind of do what he does well. And I think what he does well is just kind of getting lost in things, right? Like when you see him ready to make a play, suddenly it's just the puck comes to him and he's all wide open. And boy, someone was talking online about him having this great vision, and it is, right? Like the funny thing about that is there's something about the way that he plays that special players have, Cole Perfetti, because when really special players get the puck, the way that they handle that puck and the way that they have it, it just seems like all eyes turn to those players, and you kind of get sucked into that player and you forget what else is happening. You know who's really, really good at that and has been for years? I mean, there's a lot of players, but I remember Erik Karlsson has always been that kind of player that he gets the puck and then you just kind of get lulled into watching him, and then all of a sudden he makes a pass, and in retrospect the pass looks obvious, and yet no one on the ice is expecting it. So it's like this little bit of a hypnotism that these players are able to do, and I think that we saw a little bit of that on the Gus Bus goal, because Perfetti gets the puck and then all of a sudden it's on Gus's stick and it's in the back of the net. And it looks obvious. He's skating into the spot where you want that puck to go. And yet something about the way Cole Perfetti operates is you don't see where the puck is going until he puts it there. And when he puts it there, it's obvious. And I just think that we're seeing a little bit more of that. We saw another step forward in Cole Perfetti starting to feel like a little bit freed up. It does have me questioning, Ken, the idea that Cole Perfetti will ever make it as a centerman in the league. And the reason I say that is I just think it's really, really hard to hide the way that he does and the way that it seems to work best with his game. When you're at center, there's just too much of a focus, and we saw what the focus on Cole Perfetti looked like. It can be borderline abusive when other teams are going after you. Him playing in a situation where the people around him kind of create the screen, allow him to get lost in the weeds, I think is really what has him working at the NHL level. Now, can he start developing other parts of his game and get to that? Yes, I think he can, but at the same time, what he does right now, I think he could be a really good NHLer at it if the people around him allow him to get lost. And I think Vladdy Namestnikov has done a really good job of doing that. You notice Namestnikov when he's on the ice, he's upsetting things, he's getting in the other team's face, and I think by him doing that, it really, really does put up the invisibility screen for Cole Perfetti.
Yeah, I mean, he provides great insulation. That's kind of a word I've used a lot with Vladislav Namestnikov. And just with Perfetti, I would just say it's a little bit too early for me to make the same assessment, Sean. And I just think that he's still so young. And the biggest thing with Cole is that just the way that the back, the shoulder and back injury, I just kind of, speaking of disruption, it disrupted his summer schedule for basically the previous 2 summers. This summer he was finally able to train full on, but the summer before, really, in a year where he needed to, add a half step, if you will, he just couldn't, it wasn't 2 summers in a row, but the summer previous, he just didn't have the same amount of time to be able to do that, because the back injury portion of the injuries he was dealing with in his rehab just prevented him from being on the ice until it was later in the summer. So I thought at the start of training camp, I thought I definitely noticed a difference in the skating. But I mean, the pace is always going to be something that Cole is working at. But I mean, his superpower is his vision and ability to anticipate. So those are things that's a skill that you can't teach. So it can make up for some of that, and I do think that he'll continue to work extremely hard at, I don't think he's ever going to be a burner like a Nikolai Ehlers, but I think he continued to work on his speed and his strength to a degree. And I do think that his ability to pass the puck, and he explained it really well on the first day of media availability when I spoke to him, his ability to find players on both of his flanks kind of opens up another level for his vision. Whereas if he's playing on the wall, it's less 3D and more kind of just real time passing. So even though he has great peripherals, but I still do think it's a little bit too early to make that overall assessment that he could never be a center. I know you're not saying never, but
no, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying
he may be better suited to be a winger. I mean, that's what you're saying. So
that's
I mean, I'm not going to dispute, but I'm going to say for me, I'd like to wait a little bit longer, and I would say for me, I need the runway to be longer than 3 games in order to make that kind of an assessment. But I also understand why they made the decision, and for me, it's more of a pause than a cancellation of the experiment, basically, for me.
Okay. Ken, I know that you got to get up early in the morning because you're on the road. I will say this quickly because I know people were asking
you'll be on the road for
it.
the second game, Sean. Most importantly, you should let people know about that also.
Yeah, well, we'll be able to touch on it after.
Oh, sorry,
I'll be doing the Hockey Night in Canada game out of Montreal when the Jets go to Montreal, and then I'll also be doing the Monday night game for the Blake Wheeler return game here in Winnipeg when they return, and I'll be doing the Tool concert on the Sunday, sandwiched in between that. So it's going to be a busy weekend.
I would say
it's going to be a busy weekend for Renny. People had asked about it. I did not see the Chipmans sit down with Darren Dreger. I don't know if you have.
So
I don't know. Okay,
no.
So people
that's
were
why
not,
people think
not,
we're ignoring it, but that's we need to see the full
not
interview,
ignoring
and
it.
we'll assess it on Thursday night after the game.
Yeah, we'll have to. Yeah, we'll dive into that. I mean, I know I saw Darren in the press box here tonight, and clearly it's been obvious over the years when the Jets like to handle certain news, they like to do it through Darren Dreger. So that's what we're seeing here tonight. I haven't seen it yet. We'll get on that and we'll have those conversations. Like I said, we try to make sure that we are fully accessible for any topic. And I know it's an important topic to a lot of you, for everyone, because I've seen a lot of it in the chat room. So we'll get to it. We're not ducking it. We just can't talk educated on it because we haven't seen it at this stage.
Yeah. And speaking of, issues, I mean, happy to see, first of all, stick taps to Travis Dermott for using the pride tape in the game.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
We talked about it last week, I believe. So I think it's important that we follow up to say good to see that the NHL will allow players to support various causes via the stick tape this year. It's unfortunate that it came to this decision had to be made with a kind of a reversal, if you will, but at least happy to see the allyship from Travis Dermott and glad that other players will follow suit as the year goes on here.
Yeah, Travis Dermott, standing ovation
Love it.
for having the courage to step up there and do that. I do know I had said something about when I saw this decision. I'd said congratulations to the players for winning the war on decency, and someone had said, what players? It's just Travis Dermott. I would suggest, and I saw some comments from Cale Makar that came out today, and I don't know if he knew that it was going to be reversed or he made that comment before it was going to be reversed, but I'll agree 100-fold that Travis Dermott is the guy who put himself, stood out in the middle of traffic and really exposed himself, especially because he's not the kind of player who has got an 8-year contract and is making a certain amount of money. Like, he's in a position where if something happened, didn't make it out of the league. Like, that's so congratulations to him. Massive stick taps to him. Credit to the players behind the scenes who pushed back, because I don't think it was just him. I think more players were involved with this. I said it on Twitter. I didn't like the statement in that the statement doesn't talk about the reversal. It just basically says that, it doesn't acknowledge the decision. It basically, you can tell the NHL was forced into reversing this by the players. So good on the players for doing that. I thought it was a terrible idea. In the NHL, I would like to see it is inclusion across the board. And that means, anyone who feels like they're not welcome, whether that's based on ethnicity, on sexual orientation, on religion, anything like that. The NHL I want to see is one where everyone is welcome, and I hope that we reflect that in our comments. I hope we reflect it in the way that we conduct ourselves, both in our jobs and on the podcast here. I hope we reflect it to you in the way we treat you in the audience. Yeah, I know I like to yell at you all every once in a while. It's fun. Some of you seem to like it, so I continue doing it. But we are all about inclusivity and making sure that everyone feels like they are valued, because Kenny and Renny do value you all, each and every one of you. Thank you for the time that you spend. And before we do go, I want to say, if you appreciate the conversations happening in these spaces, please appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, the Johnston Group, Pristine Roofing, Cambrian Credit Union, TransCanada Brewing Company, The Keg, and Sweet Lou Furlan. Thank you to them, and thank you to all of you for your time. We can't wait until the next time we get to see you, which will be after the Winnipeg Jets play the Detroit Red Wings, a surprising team. Ken, it's going to be fun to see you there. I won't see you there, but I will see you in Montreal. Maybe we can get some of that sweet Montreal food while we're at it as well. Great spending time with you, Ken. Great spending time with you all. We will see you after the Detroit game. Bye-bye.